Good day everyone, my name is Anafami and today I'll be presenting about my PSM1 proposal. The topic of my PSM1 is actually comparative study on the performance of sequential and non-sequential deep learning model for phishing email detection. So without further ado, let's head straight to it. This is a table of content. We're going to talk about the problem statement and then what's the solution to it, the justification on the algorithm is being chosen, what are some research questions that we would like to answer and what are some of the research objectives that we would like to carry out, what are the research gaps that exist within this domain of study, and what is the project scope, and last but not least, what is the requirement for this project. So to start things off, the problem statement, the first thing is that there is an ineffectiveness of traditional method when it comes to detecting phishing email. Now, attackers nowadays, they're going to use AI, they're going to use like domain spoofing and obfuscation techniques, which is like turning a code into a gibberish, like you can't really understand the code by itself, right? But the code still functions. So all that techniques can make it hard for like traditional method to detect whether something is actually a legitimate emails or like a phishing emails. And the second thing is the financial impacts that a phishing email might have. So we know over the years and how phishing emails have caused impact in the financial world. For example, in 2018, the FBI has been reported to have $100 million USD of financial loss due to a compromised payroll database that actually resulted from a phishing email attack. Now the third is the challenges in feature engineering and dependency of extended service. Now a lot of traditional methods, for example like machine learning per se, kind of depend on extended service and also the feature engineering. Now feature engineering. Extended service here kind of refers to like search page indexing or like other third-party hosts. So they depends on those things to detect whether something is actually a phishing email or not. Now that can be a bit of a backstab because what if the host itself is actually compromised by the hacker itself? And so we need to build a somewhat an independent model that don't really depend that much on the third-party model. Now, the problem with feature engineering is that it requires an expert to constantly monitor it. So the expert will, say, for example, produce some like a list of keywords that, if you have this word, then it's a phishing emails, right? The problem is, times are changing and like, attackers are always changing their approach. So it's such a very dynamic environment does not always precipitate for feature engineering, which often works on a very only works on the basis that the experts knows what needs to be done, and so that is the problem statement that we have. Now this solution that I'm proposing is actually we're using a deep learning model, sequential model, for example LSTM and RNN, and compare it with a non-sequential model. So go head to head toe to toe when it comes to both of this model. So because like deep learning per se, they don't really require that much of human intervention. Yes, you do have to code it to build the model, not deny it. But compared to like machine learning, the amount of supervision that you need to maintain it is much less because they learn on top of each other, right? And so they can in some ways learn by themselves. And this is what allows corporation and organization to continuously refine the defense in dealing with phishing threats. Now, some justification on the algorithm itself. Why do we choose LSTM, RNN, and MLP? Now, the reason why we choose LSTM, in short system, LSTM is very good when you have a very complex problem, like a very large data set and a very complex problem, and you want it to solve without explicitly telling them how to solve it. So, the LSTM is very, very intelligent in solving complex problems. Now, RNN, on the other hand, they're very good at predicting what's the next thing to come. So, for example, if we have for example, if we have, so it has a bunch of words, right? Have a bunch of words, it studied them, and then it can predict like what's the next word that you will need to have, right? So, for example, like that is pretty much what NLP is. It sees a bunch of images and then it predict what's the next images would probably come out, right? So that's what RNN is very good at. Multi-layer perceptron is very speed and very efficient sort of deep learning model. So if you want to get things done quickly, you use MLP, and it's very ideal for real lifetime system. For example, like it sees like a static URL, and it can define immediately whether it's a phishing email or not a phishing email, right? And so that's why we choose this tree algorithm. Now, what some research questions do we have? Now, first and foremost, we have what are the existing phishing email detection mechanism and how effective are they in detecting phishing emails? Second one is how can deep learning model be trained using publicly available phishing email data set? And what are the key factors in influencing the detection accuracy? And last but not least, we have how do different deep learning models compare in phishing email detection based on key performance metrics such as accuracy, precision, recall, and effort score. The objective that we want to figure out is the first and foremost, we want to conduct a very comprehensive literature review of phishing email detection mechanism, but specifically highlighting in the domain of deep learning. The second one is we want to develop and train chosen deep learning model, the three just now, and we use them against a publicly available email dataset, and we evaluate their detection accuracy and effectiveness. Last but not least, we analyze and compare the performance of base model or deep learning algorithm based on the key metrics such as accuracy, precision, recall, and effort score. All of these have their own formula for themselves. Now, what are the research gap that exists? There must be a research gap, right? So, when I read them, I realized that there are two things that exist. There's the comparison study and there's the analysis study. Now, comparison study, when it comes to like phishing email or like phishing in data per se, they always like compare unsupervised, supervised, and hybrid deep learning models. I have not yet read a paper that per se like directly compares sequential and non-sequential model head to head, right? And when it comes to analysis, they often take like something like CNN and they use it to detect, let's say, a phishing website, or like they use LSTM and they use it to detect phishing links or something. So they only use like one deep learning model, and they use it like how effective that model is towards this specific problem. So it's not really comparison or any sort. And that's why I realized that there remains a gap in understanding how sequential and non-sequential deep learning model perform against one another when it comes to phishing email detection. Now, what is the project scope of this one? Now, we don't see the scope as like who we are targeting it to or who we're gonna do it to. I think we see it as more like, because deep learning is like, it's such a very wide model, right? You have a feedforward neural network, you have a Siamese neural network, you have a graph tree neural network. So it's like, which one we're gonna choose? And so we have shrunk it all down to just realize, you know what? We're just gonna take sequential and non-sequential model, and which in this case is LSTM rather than an MLP. So this research study does not develop fully fledged phishing detection system, but rather focus on more analyzing comparison performance within each model throughout the experiment. So last but not least, this is the hardware software. We're gonna use this software. We're gonna use actually Google Colab, PyTorch, and the VSC. And last but not least is the 11th gen Intel Core i5. And then this is the laptop I'm going to use, and we're going to use those deep learning algorithm. Network element that we might touch is the electronic mail protocol, maybe SMTP protocol too. But overall, the project area is actually security and phishing in general. So that's pretty much a brief explanation on the proposal that we have. So I hope with that I'm able to provide briefly about what our project will be about. And so yeah, I hope with that I'll see you again in the next video. Thank you.